Right.
Oh, I'm starting, excuse me, Miss Elizabeth, and I hope Josh is awake. So, welcome to Module 3. Me and Miss Fitz have gone a bit crazy after a long day, so apologies if we're a bit incoherent. So to recap very quickly what we were just talking about in Module 2, key points: soul is divine, which means potentially it is immortal or it survives, it does not die, and the body is mortal, so it dies. In terms of what happens to the body upon death, we know that Socrates believes that it dissolves and decays and it breaks down. And then in terms of what the soul upon death, there's those two possible paths as decided by Hades. So you could either be sent off to live a happy, beautiful existence in a pure state with the gods, or your soul, because it's too attached to the body, could be on a path where it stays on. It's dragged back down to the earth, and you wander around the tombs. In terms of the souls on that second path, we know that you get trapped on that path because during life you stayed constantly with the body. You paid court to it, or you were constantly under your spell. So if you remember, me and Miss Fitz talked about... Sorry, Miss Fitz is being very loud here. We talked about how the soul can focus too much on bodily things and bodily pleasures. That idea of pleasures is probably a good one to hold on to, because it's something we're going to talk about a bit today.
Socrates talks a lot about pleasures.
Yes, Socrates.
Even in Gorgias, which we're going to do in second semester.
Okay, so pleasure is a big theme here. So these souls that are trapped on Earth, what actually happens to them? So Socrates believes that they continue to walk the tombs and the memorials where they're kind of ghost-like until the time, misfits, when their desire for the bodily, which they still have, that desire that they've had all that time, causes them to become imprisoned in another body. Okay? And so what we're about to look at... I'm really sorry, Miss Fitz is making a lot of noise. Oh my... Miss Fitz.
Okay.
My class is going to dislike you even more now. So what we're about to look at is what new body they may become imprisoned in. And what we'll see is that Socrates believed there's a range of options based on how they've behaved.
So the souls that get trapped in a body are either bad souls or good souls. Both of these kind of souls get trapped in a body, and it's only the best type of souls that go on to live with the gods after death. So if you've been bad in life and you've been way too intertwined with the bodily, you might get trapped in a body like that of an ass, like donkey here. I thought this was very mean of you. I like donkey.
But he is an ass.
An ass, yeah. So if you've practiced gluttony, which basically means greed, and excessive fondness for wine, you might get trapped in the body of an ass. Or if you have supported injustice in the form of tyranny or pillage, which means stealing or kind of robbing people and trespassing on their property, you might pass into the body of a wolf or a hawk. But then if your soul has been good throughout life, so it hasn't been too in love with the body, so this is the kind of people who have practiced what we call civic virtue. How would you define that?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Well, civic virtue is, I guess, being a good citizen, like looking after your friends and...
He refers here to so we're on page 122, but he refers to this idea of practicing kind of justice as well.
Yeah, so being
right.
fair.
Yeah.
Moderation, he mentions as well, which is like not being too greedy, doing everything in moderation.
Yeah.
These are the good souls, and if you've been a good soul, you might attach to the body of a human Or says a gentle creature like an ant or a bee or a wasp. I wouldn't think a wasp is very gentle, but yeah,
well,
I guess it's better than an
current,
ass or a wolf.
Yeah, and based on our current ant invasion at our home, I wouldn't call an ant too gentle.
So these are, good souls, but maybe they've still been a little bit intertwined with the body. So they haven't achieved the best type of soul yet. And so this is a little clue here. It says they've done this without exercising philosophy and intelligence. So this is a clue. The very best type of soul would have practiced philosophy and intelligence throughout their life.
So he's introducing now, down around the bottom of page 122, what he thinks you need to have done to have the best kind of soul. And just to remind you, as it says here, this is the kind of soul that gods belong to. So if you want to go and meet Hades and have Hades send you on your way so that you can live a happy life with the gods, this is the kind of soul you need. And he's saying that they must be a lover of learning, that they have to have practiced philosophy in the correct way and keeping clear of all the bodily desires instead of surrendering themselves to them. And I guess it's important to say, so this is kind of, already we've got here really his conclusion about the best kind of soul. And what he's now going to go through in this text on page 123 is, and 124 I think, is why philosophy is the way to the best kind of soul.
Yeah.
Okay, so to achieve this best kind of soul, Socrates is going to use philosophy in two kinds of ways, or in two steps, kind of. So first he's going to use it to kind of escape the prison that he describes here on page 123, which is kind of the prison of our senses or of bodily things. And so an example of this is if we think back to, say, Descartes, and Descartes' discussion of senses, is he talked about, he similarly talked about the possibility of our senses deceiving us or keeping us in a prison, like Socrates is saying, and talked about one thing being, say, like a mirage. So if we were to think about this example here, the prison would be our senses or our body leading us to believe that there was this tropical oasis in the distance, that... Whereas if we then were to properly think about it, what Socrates would say, that using philosophy and reason, we'd be able to think about it and realise, no, hang on, that doesn't make sense. I'm in a desert.
Right.
There isn't going to be a tropical oasis here.
Yeah.
It's just a mirage.
It's just like Descartes saying we can't trust our senses.
Yeah.
And even though Descartes does try to dismiss reason, Descartes ends up relying much more heavily on mental scrutiny.
Yeah.
And reason, rather than the senses, because they trick us.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly what Socrates used here. It does here. He gets to the point where he's like, okay, so philosophy and reason is helping us get to the truth. So another example would say just be with kind of these bodily distractions that he's been going on about, where the soul binds itself to the body. So the prison of our senses might shroud us and make us focus on those more bodily things and distract us with it.
You can imagine the senses and the body being a prison, because if we get too caught up in like eating and drinking and, being sexual and whatnot, as he says, that can distract us from the more important things in life. So those things can kind of imprison us by making us forget to think about how to be a good person or what the meaning of life is,
Yeah, so the real truth that it's being referred to here on this slide is, those things that you're being distracted from, those greater truths.
So we need to use philosophy to focus on those greater truths.
Yeah, and to get past our senses, to get past the prison of our senses or the prison of the body or whatever, to be able to get to that point where we can focus on them.
Yes, and that's how we get
prison,
the best kind of soul.
Yeah. And so he would then take it a step further as well and say, well, okay, once I've been able to realise this real truth, I need to fix my gaze on it and keep my gaze fixed on it to see off kind of what he describes as a storm of pleasure and pain that could come and keep trying to distract me.
Well, he talks about, so philosophy has helped us to escape this prison, and now by focusing on philosophy, it's going to help us stay strong and continue to avoid that prison.
Yeah.
Because if we start liking philosophy and using reason, we're going to be much more intelligent, and therefore we're not going to want to go back to that prison. He talks about this at the bottom of page 124. The soul of a philosophical person wouldn't want to surrender itself to pleasures and pains, to bind it back into the body again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that idea there as well. So that if you were to give in to those pleasures and pains, it's what's ultimately is going to bind your soul to the body. So you're trying to focus on what he calls the true. You want to fix your gaze on the true, the divine, and not merely the subject of beliefs, and things that are not just beliefs, maybe based on your senses or other things.
You want to fix your gaze on things which are certain, not just things which are beliefs.
To keep you from being attached.
That's like Descartes as well, when he says in the thinking thing argument, I'm going to subtract anything that I can't know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Socrates wants to just focus on things we can know for sure.
And so, his conclusion for this part, and something that we'll look at in a mind map, that basically you get the best kind of soul through philosophy. So if you want to live the happy high life up with the gods, you need to basically be a philosopher.
Classic Socrates. And just before we end, I know I've promised shout-outs to my class. Timmy has given a few shout-outs, particularly to Josh, this famous Josh, who is apparently always falling asleep. So look, just stay tuned, and I will weave in a shout-out to some of my beloved pupils as well.
Sure.
Goodbye.